She didn't just cheat, she stole our son's future, the college fund I worked so hard to save. Gone. Spent on luxury and lies with her affair partner, but when I uncovered the truth, I didn't just expose her. I made sure she paid. And she did, dearly. My entry into the trucking industry wasn't exactly planned. Although I never saw myself driving an 18-wheeler across the nation as a child, life can be unpredictable. Even though I spent many evenings helping my father repair old cars in his small auto shop, my aspirations were more to own a business than to drive a car. Nevertheless, the gears and grease soaked into my blood, and I was soon attracted to the road. I happened to land a logistics job at a warehouse after high school. I witnessed trucks arriving and departing, their drivers narrating tales of liberation, exploration, and difficulties. The seed was sown by that job, and shortly after, I took a risk and obtained my CDL. I was drawn to the open road because it gave me the opportunity to discover not only the nation but also my own boundaries. I worked every mile, saved every dime, and dreamed of owning the truck that would allow me to be my own boss at last. As I cautiously steered into the parking lot, the enormous semi-truck started to groan. In order for Ted, the seasoned mechanic, to inspect it before it was driven again, I pulled up directly in front of the repair shop. Although I do not currently own my own rig, I will soon do so. Unlike the majority of drivers for a master's over-the-road trucking service, I've saved for years, and now I'm prepared to purchase the Kenworth truck I've always wanted. Everyone calls me Chase, even though my name is Charles Bennett. Nicknames like Chuck, Chaz, Charlie, or CB irritate me. When someone tries to use them, I simply ignore them. When I was 5 years old, my mother gave me the nickname Chase because I was constantly chasing after something. Stray dogs, my brother, my dad, or school crushes. Now that the name has stuck, it simply describes who I am. I signaled our arrival to my travel companion and partner by drawing back the curtains in the sleeper cab. I called Evie and said, "Wake up or I'm leaving you here." The person stretched out on the bed remained motionless, her gentle snores unaltered. I smirked as I took a cold bottle of water out of the cooler next to the bunk. With a playful gleam in my eye, I unscrewed the cap and held it above her. I was about to pour when she spoke. "Bennett Chase. How many molecules make up a single drop of water, do you know?" Her voice was a fascinating blend of tones, neither too high nor too low to be considered feminine. It was the kind of voice that could sell you anything in a late-night commercial. It was warm and husky. It attracted attention with ease. "Evie, I'm not sure. I suppose a ton, given that I'm not a scientist. How could I know?" I mumbled, irritated. The punchline was always ruined by her rambling questions. She said, her slow, honey drawl dripping with defiance, "You should look it up, because if one drop of that water falls on me, it will be days before you even consider touching me, regardless of how many there are." Tucked under the heavy blankets in the sleeper cab, she had not moved an inch. A few strands of jet black hair framed her face, and freckles scattered across her pale skin gave her features a subtle charm. Evie may appear normal, carefree, and effortless at first glance. However, upon closer inspection, her beauty was evident and surpassed even the most refined. With instant regret, I blurted, "Perhaps I'll just find someone else." She opened her cold blue eyes and fixed me with a stare that was so intense it made me stand still. Her gaze made me feel small, even though we were different in age and size. I was 42. Stocky, and solid, and she was 24, petite, and slender. She said evenly, "You better mean your hand, because I'll deal with her right in front of you if it's one of those lot girls or anybody else." Evie stretched like a cat and then looked at the wall clock. She patted the bed and said, "You're on time. Come on in." I was mildly excited when she pulled back the blankets and showed me nothing but delicate lace underwear, but her invitation was clear. Together with her trademark smile, her eyes glistened with love and desire. "No way," I said. "Until we get home, you will have to wait. Get moving or walk because the bus is leaving in 3 minutes." With her eyes darting to my obvious arousal, she teased, "I think it's easier for me to walk than for you." As usual, she was correct. Everyone was still talking about our last yard disaster, and I wouldn't risk it happening again. After jumping down, I started unloading our equipment from the storage areas. Shortly after, Evie descended, clad only in her blanket and moccasins. She laughed and said, "Chase, stop that." I caught her jumping when I looked up. "Come on," she yelled. I hissed, easily catching her, "But what if I missed?" With a confident smile, she said, "You'd never let me fall. Do you love me too much?" Was that what I said? I fired back. "Perhaps I simply enjoy having sex with you." "Nice try, fool," she shot back. "It's evident from the way you sleep with me." Evie walked across the yard wrapped in her blanket. As she climbed into the passenger seat and settled in, I quickly unlocked my black 06 Mustang GT. Leaning back, she maintained a relaxed yet poised posture that only she could control. Evie shifted slightly, her eyes smoldering as I turned on the engine. Fortunately, the glass was tinted so that no one could see the private performance she was giving me. As I pulled out of the lot, she said, "Just warming things up for you, Chase," her voice a seductive vow. I drove quickly toward our modest Virginia Park rental house, taking care to stay out of trouble with the law. The house appeared to be deserted as usual. We spent a lot more time traveling than at home. Evie was out and heading to the front door while still wrapped in her blanket before I could even stop the car completely. I noticed the blanket starting to slip as I turned to face the trunk after closing the car door. I ran to her, forgetting everything else. There was nobody in the yard, but you can never be too careful. Evie was naturally mischievous. She was completely unconcerned about the possibility of neighbors observing her while she undressed outside. I was positive that some of them had telescopes and binoculars, probably for situations like this. As soon as the blanket hit the floor, I was able to catch up to her and drape it back over her shoulders. Huffing and pouting, she said, "You're ruining the mood." The door was unlocked in a flash, and I led her inside before slamming it behind us. The blanket on the floor close to the living room caught my attention even as I turned to see where she had disappeared. I saw lace underwear left behind farther ahead after taking a few more steps. Evie, stretched out on the imitation bearskin rug in front of the sofa, called for someone to light the fire. "I teasingly assumed you already did. I'm referring to the genius in the fireplace." She shot back, "I'm freezing." I lit a few pieces of the kindling I had grabbed and watched as the flames spread to the logs. I closed the curtains, satisfied that the fire would hold. I wasn't as fond of the idea, but Evie might like to brag. With a sly smile, she crawled toward me and whispered, "Chase, take off your clothes." I pretended that I had forgotten how buttons worked and started unbuttoning my shirt at an absurdly slow pace. Evie laughed and pulled off my socks after yanking off my shoes and throwing them across the room. Then, with playful efficiency, she unzipped my jeans and pulled them down. I caught her giggling softly at them in a way that only someone who genuinely cared could manage, and she left in my favorite Mustang boxer. She moved closer, her smile turning impish as she carefully slid them off before throwing them aside. "Do you recall the baseball game we attended a few weeks ago?" As she traced patterns on my skin with her fingers, she asked, "You mean the one where you took a bite out of the best Chicago hot dog and said you'd had better, and I missed half the action?" I grinned. She smiled mischievously and said, "Yes, the game was dull." This is what I meant when I said I wanted a hot dog. There was no room for misunderstanding based on her actions. I was about to settle into the moment when I was startled by a buzzing feeling. My phone was buried in my jeans, which was not what I had assumed. Without missing a beat, Evie grabbed her own phone with one hand and caressed me with the other. She said, "I'll end the call myself if this is one of those girls from the lot." I croaked, let it go to voicemail, hoping she would comply. Instead, she replied, "Hello Pam, yes, we're home, oh, I'll wait," with a wink and a mischievous gleam in her eyes. Then, obviously enjoying my pleading expression, she continued what she had begun, holding the phone between her shoulder and ear. She ignored my frustrated head shake and said, "Hello Bill, yes, we will return for that amount of money." Well, we were just preparing to eat. People naturally assume that's all we do, but we were only cooking. Yes, we can eat while traveling. We'll take a shower and arrive in an hour and a half. Goodbye. She threw the phone away as soon as the call was over, and we resumed our conversation. After we were done, she got up and hurried to the shower while still laughing. I called for her, Evie. With an innocent expression on her face, she poked her head out of the bathroom and asked, "What?" And I growled, "You know what?" She teased in her smoky tone, "Finished already. I guess you're getting older." Her laughter reverberated through the sound of the running water as she vanished. I went to the bathroom upstairs, muttering to myself. Evie rushed out of the downstairs bathroom, her body slick with soap and her hair still wet, before I could even open the door. She jumped on me without saying anything, which sparked more passion. Later, her head rested on my chest as we lay together in silence. "I love you, Chase," she whispered after a long silence. Yes, knowing where this was going, I smiled in response. She added mockingly that Betty Rubble could never do it like this. Betty's likeness to her always irritated her just enough to keep things light-hearted, even though she didn't like the Flintstones. After taking a shower together and gently washing away the excitement of the evening, we changed into new clothes and returned to the freight yard. I had parked my Mustang for the winter, expecting snow in the next few days, so this time we took her car. Observing the bulky bag she packed, I inquired, "Where's he sending us this time?" She put her hand in mine and said, "Michigan." I packed for the cold because it will be a long journey. Evie was a constant source of comfort, always finding a way to touch me in quiet moments. I tried not to show it, but I got a tingle down the back of my neck even when she mentioned Michigan in passing. A part of me was already wondering if the road was still what I wanted, but this job might pay enough for us to finally buy that truck I'd been eyeing. "Do you think we'll ever get married, Evie?" I asked in a serious tone. She smiled at me and put on her sunglasses, saying, "Not until you're ready." I pressed, "How will I know when I'm ready?" She took my hand and walked me to the door, saying, "I'll let you know." We immediately went to the office after returning to the yard. In addition to shaking my hand firmly, Bill embraced Evie. Bill began, "Well, here's the deal, good news and bad news. It's a lengthy journey. It pays almost twice the normal rate, but you'll be traveling over Thanksgiving. It's sufficient for you to finally acquire the Kenworth you've been discussing." Evie asked in a serious tone, "What's the bad news?" "Well," Bill explained, "it's being away from home during the holiday. That explains why the salary is so high. One of the guys with a family was the last person I wanted to send." "I am his family," Evie firmly stated. "Furthermore, I can't really cook, at least not on a stove." With a playful smile, she added, "But that's not why he loves me. Don't worry about it, we feel just as comfortable traveling as we do anywhere else." "How is the haul progressing?" Bill laughed, "There's nothing to unload, so it's a good one. Medical equipment and furnishings for Michigan's Shady Acres nursing home. It reminds me a bit of that old show where the wealthy people move to the country. That's Green Acres," Evie said, laughing. Bill took the papers and gave them to her. They didn't notice me frozen in place, staring blankly at the table because they were too preoccupied with their teasing. "Chase, what's wrong?" Evie turned back to face me and asked. Bill smirked and interrupted, "I think I know. He's just coming to the realization that he won't have any more justifications for delaying getting married to you once he has the money for the truck." Evie stated calmly but firmly that we were not getting married. "Why not?" Bill inquired. "First of all, Chase hasn't asked me," she said quietly. "Furthermore, we're not that way." The upbeat atmosphere in the room was clouded by her remarks. The mention of the nursing home added to the already tense atmosphere. Bill pressed, "What do you mean, not like that?" "We're just business partners and friends," Evie said. "I believe that people's perceptions of us are inaccurate. There are some advantages to our friendship, but that's all." Bill practically fell onto the office couch as he started laughing. "What's so funny?" frowned Evie. "Have other truckers ever accompanied you on a trip?" In an attempt to contain his laughter, Bill asked. She snapped, offended by the implication, "Of course not. I can assure you that any of them, married or not, would seize the opportunity regardless of the advantages. Hell, for the chance alone, I would dust off my old license and face my wife's wrath. Are you even paid by Chase? No, Evie said, not really. So why do you accompany him on your ride? With genuine curiosity, Bill inquired. Bill turned to face me before Evie could answer. You're telling me, Chase, that she only goes along for the view? Does she assist with unloading? Navigate in the event that your GPS fails? Or does she let one of those lot girls you have a reputation for take her place in the taxi? What about these rumors that she fights with waitresses? Those cannot be real, can they? He didn't hold off until I responded. You two practically finish each other's sentences, eat together, and sleep together, whatever you want to call it. You're already married, according to all accounts. Simply accept it. He then waved us away. Now leave this place and go to Detroit. In contrast to our typical truck, we loaded up a big Freightliner with air suspension, which was a luxury. We used GPS restaurant recommendations to plan our stops after restocking on snacks and beverages. Sensing I needed time to think, Evie leaned over and kissed my cheek as we left the yard and went to bed. When it got dark and I needed an extra set of eyes on the road, she would occasionally wake up to keep me company. Are you some sort of parcat? When we got on the highway, I broke the silence and teased, all you do is sleep. Knowing that this was how I eased back into conversation after my introspective state, she grinned. She knew when I had something on my mind because we had been together long enough. I don't want to upset you, Chase, she said in a light-hearted tone. However, while we were at home, something occurred. What might have occurred? Perplexed, I asked. We were together for the entire 3 hours that we were there. That's precisely it, she smiled. I was treated badly by the big bad man. I'm tingling from exhaustion right now. Can he go again, in your opinion? Playing along, I asked. I'm not sure, she said in a playful tone. However, I genuinely enjoyed it, so I hope so. As we continued down the road, her love pulled me out of my reverie with another kiss. Malcolm Martin, a 72-year-old resident of Shady Acres Nursing Home, showed Brad Stevens around the facility with ease. Malcolm took great pleasure in giving new residents a tour of the large facility, highlighting helpful features and offering advice on how to make their stay more pleasurable. Even though Malcolm was a resident and not an employee, he had assumed unofficial duties that might have otherwise gone unnoticed. He fostered a feeling of community in Shady Acres, where he was affectionately known as the mayor. As they explored the building and grounds, Malcolm was impressed by Brad's energy despite his advanced age of 80. The last stop was saved for last by Malcolm. He knew that beginning there might have turned Brad off completely because it had been the tour's high point but had turned into the most challenging aspect over the previous 3 years. They came to a big, imposing wooden door that said Director on a plaque. Where a nameplate had hung, a blank space appeared beneath the title. Instead of waiting for an invitation, Malcolm accepted. A habit from a time when the door was never closed, he pushed it open and turned the knob. A woman was standing still by the window in the large office, gazing out. She slowly turned to face them as they walked in. Her face was expressionless, emotionless. She might have been beautiful once, but now she had the mannerisms of a dead machine. Brad was uncomfortable, as if she were a ghost in human form, but Malcolm had become accustomed to it. Despite the eerie atmosphere, he forced himself to look at her face. The woman was identified as Anne, the director of Shady Acres. She had fair skin that didn't appear to have been exposed to sunlight, medium-length white blonde hair that fell just past her shoulders, and pale gray eyes. Over time, her figure had softened slightly, but it was still attractive. But Brad noticed something about her posture. She appeared to be carrying an invisible burden, as evidenced by her hunched shoulders and downward cast gaze. Malcolm introduced Brad Stevens to Anne, the Shady Acres director. Anne, the co-director, corrected abruptly, her voice irritating, and she held out a slender, icy hand. With a cautious handshake, Brad said, "It's a pleasure to meet you, ma'am." The conversation came to an abrupt halt when Malcolm ushered Brad out of the room and then turned back to the window. Brad rubbed his hands together as the door closed. "BRR," he muttered. She has the consistency of ice. There is potential there, though. I wish I could warm her up, Malcolm said with a regretful laugh. And was the most brilliant spark here a few years ago. She was the most beautiful, most charming woman you could ever meet, slender, lively, healthy. She was the reason this place was buzzing. What took place? Curious, Brad asked. Her light was dimmed by a personal tragedy, Malcolm said, his tone becoming softer. Since then, she has changed. At the same time, Anne's desk phone rang in the office, revealing a 3-digit internal extension. Before responding, she let out a sigh. Hi there. Weary, she said. We don't have enough chairs or tables for Thanksgiving, and the landscaping crew says they can't handle the snow on Wednesday, and the lab needs supplies. What ought we to do? An urgent question was asked by a voice on the other end. Everything has been ordered, and said in a flat voice, it will be Wednesday morning when the truck arrives. The crew will take care of the snow, and you will have time to set up. If necessary, I will email you the confirmation. She hung up and went back to her window vigil, looking like a somber statue in her gray skirt and white blouse. Evie stirred in the sleeper compartment and then yawned lightly as I drove. I imagined her carefully putting her iPad away, likely in preparation for a comfortable undress. Suddenly a hand appeared and dropped a pair of small black panties onto my shoulder. She teased, here's something to keep your mind busy while you drive. And while I'm trying to fall asleep, don't even consider playing your hillbilly music, get me some Taylor Swift. I grinned. There were peculiarities to living with someone younger than the majority of my clothes. She didn't exactly share my taste in music. I flipped through the radio to find a tune to go with the ride as her gentle snores filled the cab. I chose a well-known song that I knew she wouldn't enjoy. I turned down the volume and let the gloomy lyrics fill my head. A waterfall of guitars and the singer's melancholy voice were like a salve, bringing back feelings I hadn't felt in years. As I drove, I started crying as the song drew me into a nostalgic, bittersweet state of mind. Then Evie's smoky voice broke the silence. Shut down that noise, Chase. There is no need for a funeral march because no one is dead. Play that garbage backwards so you can get your house, truck, and dog back if you insist on listening to it. She went on. Find something with a beat for heaven's sake, and I shook my head, laughing in spite of myself. I grinned in spite of my disappointment because I knew Evie would never allow me to mope for very long. No matter what, she had a way of making me feel better. I hoped she knew how much I loved her, with all of my heart and soul, even though I didn't say it very often. I made the decision to stop worrying about what might not happen and instead concentrate on the good. Completing this transport and eventually purchasing my own truck became my top priority. Bill could still hire Evie and me, but we wouldn't have to pay exorbitant rental fees to use his truck if we owned our own. If the truck broke down, we would obviously have to pay for the repairs ourselves, but the extra money could eventually enable us to start a family. After what had happened the last time, I couldn't believe I was still considering that possibility. In actuality, Evie saved me more times than I could count, but she frequently referred to me as her savior. I recalled our first encounter as she slept soundly in the sleeper cab. A tiny figure darted across my path as I was ready to pull out of a Wichita parking lot. It was being pursued by two larger figures. I got out of the taxi without thinking and did what I do best. I went after them. The smaller figure stumbled and I caught up. I caught both of the pursuers by the collars and yanked them off their feet before they could get to their target. I clenched my fists and stood between them and the smaller figure. I was prepared for anything they threw at me because I was larger than both men. The first man held up his hands in a menacing position. I was instantly on edge because of his posture, which screamed martial arts training. The second man appeared less assured, getting over the fall but obviously assessing me. I made the decision to move fast. The first man started, "I'm a third Dan," but I interrupted him. I rushed at him, using my strength and size to knock him to the ground. After he was on the ground, I punched him once in the jaw, rendering him unconscious. When flat on their backs, smaller, quicker opponents were always easier to manage. When a much smaller guy landed a spinning kick on my watch, I had to learn that the hard way. When I turned to face the second man, I saw his back as he ran away, leaving his friend behind. I thought, never again. The little hooded figure next to me yelled, "You better run, coward." I heard a smoky voice behind me and turned to go back to my truck. She said, "Thanks, big guy." I laughed and continued to move. Snow started to fall, and as I started the truck, I saw the hooded figure watching me from the highway. I began to back away, and she gave me the thumbs up. "Great," I muttered to myself. Since it appeared that she was going the other way, I assumed I could continue driving without further consideration. However, as I increased my speed, the hood slid back, exposing a stunning set of blue eyes and black hair. The truck was stopped before I knew it. The woman called through the window, "I knew you wouldn't abandon me." "Where are you going?" I questioned sternly. "Wyoming." "Brightly, wide open spaces," she said. "Well," I said, "I'm heading to Little Rock, apologies." "Oh," she smiled, "I've always wanted to see Little Rock. Located directly on the route to Wyoming, it's the city of my dreams." In frustration, I yelled, "Get in the truck." I had to reach over to help her get into the taxi because she was so little. I knew right away that she wasn't your typical hitchhiker once she was seated. I said, "So, where are you really going?" "I told you Wyoming, but it's okay, Mr. Grumpy, if Little Rock is all you can handle," she said. "Little Rock is southeast, and Wyoming is northwest." I pointed out that you're heading in the exact opposite direction. As if we were old travel friends, she said casually, "So, we're taking the scenic route." Before I started the truck, I asked how old you were. 22, she lost her temper. "Why? Are you a police officer? Do you require my ID to be seen?" I shot back, "You bet I do." Her name was Evelyn Sanders, and she took her license out of her backpack. She was, in fact, 22. She rested her backpack on the floor and leaned back in her seat while I drove. There was silence for a moment, then she asked a question, "Is there a sign that reads, 'Please talk to me,' on my forehead?" She informed me that in order to save money for her next move, she had been relocating for almost a year and taking on odd jobs like waitressing at truck stops. She described how she was exposed to the two men who had promised her food after her money ran out. "I'm not stupid," she said in a rough yet captivating smoky voice. "I asked them directly what I would have to do in order to get that food. Since they had money and I didn't, they discussed balancing the scales and agreed to share. Then I understood that sharing something I had that they didn't was how they defined balance." She looked at me like she was gauging my response. I avoided looking into her eyes by concentrating on the road. With a quiet giggle, she leaned back in her chair. After a pause, she asked, "How did you know?" "You know what?" I said. She teased, "How did you know I have a sweet A? It's really cute, but you couldn't see it beneath my jacket." We haven't looked back since that 2-year period. We both had to overcome trust issues during the difficult beginning, whereas mine resulted from a lifetime of distrusting everyone, particularly women. Evie's came from fleeing an abusive family. She had some faith in me right away, but it took weeks for her to trust me more. Before I stopped asking if she wanted to part ways at the next town. Almost a month had gone by. We had our first serious argument over that question. It began quite innocently. We were traveling to Wyoming with a load of paper. I decided to strike up a conversation as we got closer to the state line because I remembered what she had said when we first met. I asked if there was a particular location in Wyoming where I should drop you off. "Wherever you want to leave me, I can get out," she said softly. When I looked over, I noticed her crying for the first time since we began traveling together. Like a truck, guilt struck me. The topic was dropped, and I didn't bring it up again. She only took her backpack out of the truck when there was a laundry service nearby. As I saw when we pulled over in Wyoming. I was suspicious when I noticed her conversing with a large man who smiled eerily at her. She flinched when he pulled her into an embrace. I dropped what I was unloading and went straight over to stop them before they could enter his vehicle. I glared at him and growled, "You'll regret it if you don't take your hands off her." He objected, "Hey," she came to me, "just let me know if you don't want your daughter to ride with me." Evie smiled sharply and said, I'm not his daughter. He is reportedly attempting to break up with me, even though I am his girlfriend. With haste, the man climbed into his vehicle and drove away. Evie became enraged and turned against me as soon as he left. She yelled, why didn't you just let me go if you're so ready to get rid of me? I retorted, you mentioned that you wanted to visit Wyoming, and here we are. Congratulations. You did the right thing. She shot back, I'll go now so you don't have to deal with me anymore. I asked if I had ever called you a burden. In the middle of our argument, a state trooper came up to us. Is something wrong here? He inquired. No, officer, I blurted out. I'm sure there is, Evie said. The trooper sighed, he took my car. Okay, show me your identification. Both of us turned in our licenses. After examining them, he turned to face me. She is 21 and you are 40, sir. It's difficult, but there are times when you have to let your kids make their own choices. Since she is an adult, she is free to go wherever she wants. Listen to your father, young lady. He obviously loves you. He then returned our IDs and walked away, reminding us to control our language in case children were around. Before she asked, Evie and I stood silently for a minute. You stopped him, but why? I answered because he was eerie and treated you like food. Additionally, you weren't genuinely interested in accompanying him. I noticed your recoil when he gave you a hug. Why are you concerned? From the beginning, you have been attempting to get rid of me, she fired back. Okay, if your goal is to balance the scales. I'll take a rideshare home, I firmly said, get back in the truck. I'll let you know when it's time to go. Really? She posed a challenge. Yes, I answered in line with her defiance. Well, Dad, she said, laughing. One thing is wrong with you, what is that? With a smile, I asked. I don't have a small a. You keep talking about it, but why? She made fun of it. I didn't bring up her rear end again for a month. As we got to know one another, things became more comfortable and even flirted. Every time we stopped, Evie made sure she was completely covered, something she had probably learned from traveling alone to avoid being noticed. We made a stop at a Tucson diner approximately 4 months into our journey. As soon as I walked in, Sarah, a waitress there with whom I had a long-standing friendship, rushed over to welcome me. Just as Evie sat down at our table, she asked me what I wanted to eat, gave me a hug, and kissed my cheek. The tension was there from the start. Sarah was trying to piece things together when she said, Chase, you didn't tell me you had a daughter. Evie yelled, Chase, I had no idea you were attracted to older women. You are his grandmother, but I am no longer his daughter. Do you kiss me or all the men here? Calm down, Evie, I said hastily. Sarah is a longtime friend. Okay, let's eat and then resume our journey. Sarah left to place our order, clearly shaken. Evie asked me to choose a song from the jukebox before she excused herself to use the restroom. I asked, perplexed because we had never talked about music. She said, just pick something I'll like. You must begin determining my preferences. Sarah came up behind me and put a hand on my shoulder, letting it slide down my back as I walked up to the jukebox, still not sure what to pick. Before I could even comprehend the gesture, there was a flurry of activity, complete with broken glass, yelling, and more. Just as Sarah put her hand on my back, Evie came out of the ladies' room and immediately snatched up the first object she could find, a wrench that a previous customer had left on a nearby table. She threw it at the jukebox, narrowly missing Sarah's head, and came charging at us, her eyes blazing. Sarah was a good 20 kilograms heavier than Evie, but Evie's rage was powerful. Taking her by the waist, I stopped her and led her back to the truck. I calmed her down and went back to the diner to get our food and give the owner money for the shattered jukebox glass. As I backed the truck back onto the road, Evie said, we're never coming back to this dump. I tried to calm her down by saying, but the food's great. She took the food bag and threw it out the window, saying, the next time that woman touches you, I'll throw more than a wrench. Then, as I changed gears, she suddenly put her hand over mine. It solidified our developing relationship and was the first time I'd had physical contact with someone in almost a year. I became aware that something was going on between us at that precise moment. I remembered what she had said to Sarah earlier. "Do you kiss me or all the men here?" When had I become hers, I wondered. With her hand still on mine, Evie said softly, "I'm sorry, Chase." I said, "It's not the end of the world, but we'll have to survive for the next 200 miles on chips." It took more than a year for us to become intimate, even after that passionate moment. Without going over that boundary, we shared the sleeper bunk for months. The pivotal moment occurred when we were forced to stop due to road closures during a snowstorm in Ohio. When the roads reopened, we had nothing to do, so we played video games and listened to music before I made the decision to nap in order to get ready for a long drive. In the sleeper, we lay next to each other. Evie wore sweatpants and a t-shirt, while I was dressed in jeans and a flannel shirt. As is our custom when traveling long distances, the truck was comfortable and warm. Someone was gently licking my neck when I fell asleep. But I woke up and realized it wasn't a dream. Evie was beside me in just her t-shirt and underwear, licking my neck tenderly after shedding her sweater. She gave me a quick kiss as I woke up and started unbuttoning my trousers. I began, uncertain of what to say. "Evie, please don't ruin this," she whispered. After sliding my boxers and pants down, she climbed on top of me and gave me a passionate kiss. We went from being friends to more than that when she took off her tiny panties. I felt like I had seen it all by the time I was 40, but nothing came close to the feelings I had with Evie. As the snowplow passed by without anyone noticing, clearing the roads for miles, time seemed to stop. Bill later told me that because of the storm, the building where we were to deliver was closed. Now that the roads were clear, we checked into a hotel, took a shower, and shared a bed for the first time. Evie, wrapped in a towel, sat next to me after taking a shower. "That was the best birthday present I've ever received," she said, giving me a tender kiss. I didn't know how to react, so I said nothing. I let her choose anything she wanted when we went to a mall later. Evie stopped suddenly as we were leaving one store. The salesperson behind the counter was told to wait. She looked at me and said, "I understand what you're attempting to do. None of this stuff is necessary for me." I laughed and said, "I'm not trying to get rid of you, Evie." "Oh," she said, "then it's worse. You're trying to replace the gift you gave me this morning with junk and clothing." I asked in confusion, "What are you talking about?" Intrigued, the salesperson inquired, "What did he give you this morning?" Evie smiled, patted my thigh, and said, "He gave me this," which made the woman laugh. "He is currently attempting to replace it." The miles accumulated as the months stretched into years. Evie got out of the sleeper and climbed into the passenger seat as we were crossing into Michigan. "Damn it, Chase," she remarked mockingly. "I missed 2 whole states because of you." I laughed and said, "We'll pass them on the way back." Evie was personally determined to make each state a memorable place where we met. We made sure to give it a name whenever we ventured into uncharted territory, a joint adventure that we both loved more than we'd like to admit. I warned her that we would likely get snowed in again if we stopped now. "It's still a few months until your birthday." She looked out the window at the snow falling and said, "We're probably going to be late anyway. It's just getting started, and we still have roughly 75 miles to go." A little more than 2 hours after Evie's accurate prediction, we entered Shady Acres. To get to the loading dock behind the main building, I drove the truck through the grounds. Evie seemed impressed, but it felt natural to me to pull the trailer into place. As I parked, I heard someone say, "Dude, you're the best driver we've ever had around here. Like a pro, you backed that thing in." "To unload you, allow me to gather the crew." Evie jumped out of the truck and stretched. She said, "Are we going to go outside and stretch our legs?" I said, "You can if you want, I'll remain here, perhaps check my email and play some games on your iPad." I felt uncomfortable. The snow was getting heavier, and I would estimate that another 6 to 8 inches would fall soon, as the crew unlocked the trailer doors and started unloading. I listened. Evie came back a few moments later, raking snow from her hair. She said, "Come on out, honey, pallet jacks are being used to unload the truck." We'll be here for a few hours at the very least. I climbed down reluctantly, feeling a knot in my stomach as I stood by the truck, waiting for the moment I had been dreading ever since Bill gave me this task. A voice I hadn't heard in almost 3 years called out, "Hey, trucker. Roads are closing. I'm offering you a room for the night, per the director's request. Don't hurry the crew." "We're all right," I said curtly. "Don't be rude, Chase," Evie reprimanded. "We'll take a room, of course." She smiled mischievously and added, lowering her voice, "We didn't use that hotel in Michigan, Chase. It is as large as a hotel. Perhaps we should do more than just stretch our legs." Malcolm, who was standing close by, noticed something strange and approached, but I was facing away from him. Taking Evie's hand, he said, "You're lovely." I was blown away by the words. I quickly got closer and slammed him against the wall. "Mal," I growled, "keep your hands off her." 2 guards ran up when they heard the disturbance. I gave them a fierce look, but I held Malcolm tight. Malcolm gasped, "You're hurting me, buddy, Chase. I am older than I once was." Evie begged Chase, "Honey, let him go. All he wanted to do was shake my hand. He is not dangerous." One of the guards said in a shaky voice, "Let him go, otherwise, the police will need to be called." I grinned. "You have no tools, no baton, and no weapons. Do you believe this is worth the $7.50 per hour you're earning?" After a moment of hesitation, the guard looked at his partner. He said, "Go get Ann." I let go of Malcolm and took a step back when I heard her name. I yelled, "Get in the truck, Evie. Tomorrow, we'll unhook the trailer and return." "The roads are too risky, Chase," Malcolm objected, massaging his neck. I brushed him aside and walked over to the truck. I would be safe in the taxi, far from everything I wished to avoid, if I took a few more steps. Evie obviously didn't understand what was going on, but she followed my example. She got in the truck if I told her to. The guards alerted and Bennett, who then showed up at the dock. She hardly ever reacted strongly to anything anymore. Many thought she was no longer willing to care. However, she felt something when Malcolm, a man she had known for years, was mentioned as being in danger. And then Malcolm had a lengthy history that began when they put in endless effort to create a safe haven for the people living in Shady Acres, and approached warily as she noticed a big man looming on the platform. But as she moved in closer, it became clear. "This isn't possible," she said, her voice shaking. She ran toward me, Chase, her feelings piercing the years of distance. However, Evie blocked her path and raised a hand before she could get to me. "How do you know Chase, Grandma?" And narrowed her eyes and asked, "Who is this little girl?" Evie shot back, "The same little girl who will knock you flat if you call me that again." Every time and attempted to pass her, Evie stopped her. And turned to me in frustration. "Why did you harm Malcolm, Chase? To you, he was like a father. You left us, but why? Where have you been?" I gave her a chilly look. I yelled, "Exactly, what sort of father did he have?" I refused to allow his dirty hands to touch Evie. Evie is not a cheating liar just because my previous partner was. None of you will let him get to her. I'm going to bury you all first. With every word, my voice rose and reverberated through the wintry night. Employees and residents had gathered in response to the disturbance, and many of them recognized me right away. They looked as if I had risen from the dead, with reactions ranging from shock to disbelief. Malcolm said, "Perhaps we should take this somewhere more private." "The 2 of you must speak." Evie glared at him and hissed, "He's not going anywhere alone with that old brat." And interrupted, her voice tense, "Chase. The roads won't be cleared until the morning due to the heavy snowfall." Her thoughts were racing, all about my unexpected return. She had no interest in what I had done, where I had been, or why I had left. She only cared that I was present, and she would not allow me to go again without a fight. With this black-haired woman standing defiantly next to me, I was her husband, the man she had loved all of her adult life, and she wasn't going to let me go. And suggested that we set up rooms for you and your friend. And Evie interrupted, "A room and a girl," and narrowed her eyes and asked, "What are you talking about?" Evie shot back when you said, rooms, Grandma Moses. I'm not his friend, and we only need one. We do have a lot of sex, so perhaps I am his lying friend. I am his girlfriend, though. What on earth are you? I'm his wife, and shot back. There was silence in the room. Evie froze, obviously taken aback. I stood erect, my rage brewing beneath the surface, and appeared determined to piece together the story of my departure and figure out how to keep me there, while Malcolm looked completely confused. The four of us were seated in the room that Anne had designated for us an hour later. Anne sat so close to me that it was obvious she was pushing boundaries, while Malcolm and I faced each other across a table. It felt inevitable, even though she hadn't touched me yet. I anticipated the backlash because I could sense how determined she was to get back in touch. I got up and put my hands on Evie's shoulders as I approached her, who was pacing uneasily. I ushered her onto the bed. Don't be anxious, Evie, I said softly. We can deal with this and move on now that we're here, even though I was afraid to come, but I don't want to move on without you, she said in a tremulous voice. I told Evie that everything would be all right. It was best for us to remain in the truck. We could have waited out the snow as usual if we had. She took my hand in hers and held it firmly as she asked if there would be another chance. There was a knock on the door before I could answer. An elderly woman with a tablet came in. Her smile exuded warmth, and her graying brown hair framed a gentle face. She came over and took Evie's and my hands before guiding us back to the table. My name is Bertha McKinney, she said. I work as a psychiatrist. To keep things constructive, and asked me to mediate this conversation. Does anyone mind that I'm here? Evie crossed her arms and asked, why are we even holding this meeting? Why don't we simply unload the truck and head out? Even better, you can knock when you're finished, and we'll wait in the truck. After that, we'll leave this place immediately. Miss, I can appreciate your frustration, Bertha said coolly. However, some of us have questions that require clarification. Tonight, none of us are going anywhere because of the accumulation of snow. Mr. Bennett, let's begin with something easy. For years, I have been your wife's counselor. Your sudden departure was the cause of her depression. Do you want to discuss it? No, I said bluntly. It's finished. In any case, it was garbage. What are you discussing? Anne's voice rose in exclamation. You walked away silently. We were content. I know you love me, and I loved you more than anything. You call it crap. How dare you? I snapped because I was foolish back then, and you probably believe that I'm still foolish now. Maybe this isn't the best place to start, Bertha said. Let's do something different. Malcolm and you were very close, Chase. You attacked him today, but why? I said curtly. It was his fault. How did he do it? Bertha pushed. He mistook me. I dismissed it, saying it didn't matter. Malcolm gently said, I forgive you, and held out his hand to me. I gazed at his extended hand as if it were a lifeless rat. I growled, I don't need your pardon, it was you who made the mistake. You ought to have avoided Evie. Bertha let out a sigh. Let's try something different. Why don't you tell me about your memories of Chase, Anne? Is there anyone who objects? Evie's voice was icy as she said, I don't care what she says. Don't refer to him as her husband, though. Chase and I were content. Anne started, her eyes darting to Evie. I was given a chance after 8 years of marriage. I was sick of working in hospitals after earning my degree in healthcare management. I wanted to accept the manager position at Shady Acres when it was offered to me. It would enable me to directly influence people's lives, but I needed Chase's help to take the job. I was concerned that he wouldn't want to uproot his life when we had to move states. He surprised me by fully supporting me. Even though he knew we lacked enough employees, he began working here with me. And went on, this place became our life. The house turned into an extended family. I was in charge of patient care, and Chase oversaw daily operations. We worked as a fantastic team. Our love seemed to get stronger every day. I would do anything for him, no matter what. And he repeatedly demonstrated that he would stop at nothing to ensure my happiness. The tense silence was broken by Evie's voice, loud enough for everyone to hear. Remain strong. Don't be affected by whatever nonsense she says. She grinned as she saw the looks. I apologize. I was unaware that you could hear me. After clearing her throat and started, Chase vanished one day. No argument, no warning. He said he was going to get some things I needed, kissed me goodbye, and never returned. We initially thought there might be an accident, but his Mustang was gone and his truck was parked by the gate. His clothing remained. Chase and the car were the only ones who disappeared. She was unable to continue as tears poured down her cheeks. Malcolm took up the tale. After Chase left, and changed overnight, she wasn't the only one affected. We were all impacted. One of the most significant members of our family was no longer with us. We made an effort to help Anne, but she turned into a pathetic, aloof shell of her former self. She used to have a talent for lifting people's spirits and enhancing their lives in ways that no one else could. They were the ideal couple, and Chase was like the son we never had. She was devastated when he vanished. Malcolm went on. We looked for months, but we couldn't find anything. Everyone assumed Chase would have pursued a career in business management rather than truck driving. Seeing my response, Bertha said, "Do you want to add anything?" With a slight chuckle, I leaned back and shook my head. You were given the textbook version, but the key details were omitted. Yes, I quit my job, moved here for Anne, and helped her pursue her goals. I think we had a great life together and loved each other. However, it was all false. I was never loved by her. She is insane if she believes she did. When you love someone, you don't cheat on them. And interrupted, her voice cracking, you were loved by me. I still do. I would do anything to get you back. I gave her a chilly look. I heard your rendition. It's my turn now. Bertha told me to keep going. I gave a nod and started. I put a lot of effort into making this place the best it could be with Anne. She planned vacations, hosted parties, and made every effort to make people's lives better. Despite the fact that she sent me on errands all the time, I unquestionably supported her. I didn't give it much thought. Until one day. I stopped and became aware of the room's silence. I didn't remember the list she gave me that day. I turned back to the office, not wanting to be made fun of for my memory. There was a line of residents waiting outside her door when I moved stealthily so no one would notice. I watched, curious. Another man entered after Claude Jenkins, the first, left. Except for Anne, Claude had always been resentful. I now knew why. The room became more tense. I approached stealthily and peered through the office window. My wife, who I consider to be my soulmate, was hunched over her desk, her skirt hiked up, and the person behind her was Malcolm. The room reverberated with gasps. And started crying. I can tell you, she stumbled. I held up a hand and said, not just yet. I am nearly finished. Then I'm going out with Evie. Sensing that I was struggling to continue, Evie stood up and took my hand. I kept this inside for years, I said, my voice tight. I did everything Anne asked of me, even things I didn't like, because I loved her so much. Because it was better to be a little unhappy than to lose her. I believed that our relationship was excellent. I believed that our intimate life was regular and satisfying. But I became aware that I had been blind after seeing that scene. I stopped and let out a long breath, and I saw something else through that window. I started telling Anne the last details without holding back, and her face fell. That day, as I passed the office, I noticed Anne leaning over the desk, allowing those men to take advantage of her from behind. There wasn't just one, rather, there were several of them, resembling a convoluted train. Previously, she wouldn't even discuss that position with me, but it appears that she now reserves it for her elderly amusement. I hesitated as the tension in the room increased. What would have been resolved if I had gone in and screamed, hit someone, or made a scene? I just stood there, motionless, observing, not intending to slap Anne or strike a group of elderly men. This had clearly been going on for some time. She picked them over us and me. I inhaled deeply. So I went out. I got into my Mustang and drove away, leaving the truck keys in the dining room. That car was loud, fast, unmistakable, and unsubtle. Anne, however, made no attempt to stop me. I didn't turn around, I interrupted, and when she attempted to do so, I was furious for a while. I didn't care about anything or talk to anyone for about a year. At first, I missed her terribly, but as time went on, my rage subsided and I understood that I had to move on. After a while, I began dating other women. Memphis's Ruby was the first. She resembled Anne, but she was younger and had more money. I found the closure I needed to end my marriage while we were together. Evie's and Anne's eyes were burning as they glared at me. Chase, our marriage is still intact. Anne lost her temper. This is something we can resolve, Grandma, stop talking. Evie retaliated. Don't worry about Ruby, he's done with you. I'll look after her myself the next time we're in Memphis. At least mine are real, and those fake bosoms are nothing compared to mine. I spoke louder, can I get it done? And fell silent as Evie took a seat. I looked at Malcolm, who was looking at the floor, and Bertha, who still appeared stunned. I assumed Anne could file for divorce on her own if she so desired, so I never did. After avoiding Michigan for a while, I completely stopped accepting jobs in Detroit. I started over. Easy yet effective, I had some peace in my heart and friends all over the country. I assumed the loneliness was simply a holdover from Anne. The quiet was broken by Anne's gentle sobs. I continued. Then I got to know Evie. She is half my age, bold, obstinate, and envious, not at all like Anne. Despite our constant arguments, she managed to heal me. She restored my wholeness and took away the hurt Anne had left behind. Keeping my eyes on Anne, I went on. I was secretly terrified, so I didn't return here. I'm afraid it was never enough for you, no matter how much I gave. It doesn't matter now, though. I live for Evie. So what if we run into each other again? I no longer feel afraid. I looked over at Malcolm. I lost my temper when I witnessed you touching Evie. You know why I won't apologize, but it's over, that's my tale. I got to my feet. Let's go, Evie, please, and leaped in front of the door as Evie got up to follow me. With a desperate tone, she said, wait. Evie and I paused, silently observing her. Malcolm muttered to himself as Bertha remained silent. And begged, you don't understand. Do you not want me to clarify? No, I said as I moved forward. My arm was touched by Evie. Allow me to speak, she said quietly. This much has already been said, so that we can move on from it all. Let her finish. Evie and I took our seats again, but Malcolm started crying before Anne could say anything. Chase, I apologize, I never intended to cause you any harm, it was foolish, he sobbed. Ignorant? Great, I said icily. My marriage ended due to my foolishness, with tears running down her cheeks, and leaned forward. I adore you, Chase. Every day, I've been waiting by that window for you to return. A love like ours, I knew, could not wane. Despite snorting at what she said, Evie remained silent while Anne went on. To me, you were everything. Some of the men here, like Claude Jenkins, were so hopeless that they had given up on life, but I loved you more than anything. I discovered that despite his lack of will to live, he still had a great need for closeness. Perhaps I could be of assistance. I flirted and wore more skimpy attire before things got physical. Although I didn't think it was wrong, I kept it from you because I knew you would be upset. He eventually returned to life in a better state than before. I didn't consider how it would harm you or our marriage, and said after pausing. I simply believed that I was saving lives. I sincerely apologize, it got out of hand, I never imagined you would learn. I assumed that your departure was due to your fatigue with me. Will you ever pardon me? After a pause, I said, yes, you're forgiven. When I looked in Evie's direction, she sat back down despite her obvious anger. Malcolm said softly, and me, while glancing at the ground. We were friends, Mal, "Do you think that God exists?" I inquired. "I do pray a lot." He answered, "I want to be prepared when I die because I'm getting older." "Good," I said, grinning bitterly. "I hope you're prepared to rot in hell after that. Isn't one of the 10 commandments to not covet your neighbor's wife?" "No, you are not forgiven by me, and I won't. However, it is no longer relevant. I've moved on. I've decided that I'm ready to move on from the past and file for divorce after coming here." I looked over at Anne. "You live a nice life here, and, together, we could have had it. But you prioritized other people over me. One day, I hope you'll find someone else, and I hope you tell him the truth. It will take time, but I would like to re-establish our friendship." After giving her shoulder a quick pat, I walked out of the room with Evie. Anne's sobs reverberated behind us as we went down the hall, and Bertha and Malcolm tried to console her. "Lying and cheating eventually catch up with you," and Anne was finally paying the price. Perhaps Anne had good intentions at first and genuinely wanted to assist. However, as they say, good intentions pave the way to hell. It could be my fault for not caring why she did it. We both lost something in the end. There doesn't seem to be a winner in this, but I made it through and moved on first. Although I'm content now, I sincerely wished Anne the best. I became aware of how erratic life can be as I made my way back to my truck. We might still be together today if I had never learned, or I could have tried to move on and forgive her. But I'm not like that. For me, love necessitates loyalty and trust, both of which Anne destroyed. The instant she violated those principles, our marriage was over. Neither of us would respect me, and I would never trust her again, even if I wanted her back. I should put Anne in my rearview mirror. Evie has the seat next to me. After a few minutes, the truck's engine warmed up and we were inside. When the snow finally stopped, Evie was in her usual comfortable state, lying naked on the bed above me. "I need to tell you something before you go to sleep," I said. "I already know," she snorted. "Grandma's got bigger bosoms than me." "That's true," I grinned, "but that's not it, Evie. I love you more than anything or anyone." "Will you marry me after I get divorced?" she yelled. "I already knew that, idiot. Without a ring, how can you pop the question?" "I need to sleep, so come back when you're ready." "Look at me, Evie," I said, observing tears on her cheeks. "I have something in my eye," she sighed, "but I'm not crying. Now let's go so you can buy me an engagement ring, you tightwad." The radio declared that the snow warning had been lifted and that the roads were open as I shifted the truck into gear. I switched between stations until the cab was filled with a well-known tune. The song didn't make me sad this time. I had finally moved on from the past. I let the music lead me on as I looked at the road ahead.